Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Now you also saw me screw up an introduction. My name is Benvarmeren and I'm here to make a review of patch 8.8. Haven't done one of these in a long while as I've been very busy, but now I do have time to make one, so I think we'll just jump straight into it. So, haven't seen these before, by the way, so this is going to be interesting to see what Riot has dropped this time around. So, her passive has been changed. When LeBlanc drops below 40% health, she becomes invisible for 1 second and creates a mirror image that deals no damage and lasts for 8 seconds. Okay, I'm happy that they've changed the passive. I think that the problem with the passive was that you had to wait for so long before you could actually kill someone because you wanted that extra amount of damage, of course. So I think this is a more elegant way of doing it. I wonder what they've done to her ult though. So, instead of Shadow Orb, Sigil of Malice. So now that applies to target, so the mark, has less of radio and costs more mana. I think that's an elegant way of doing it. I actually think that's a really good way of doing it. I think because of you now having that mark on your Q, it means that you'll be able to apply the damage faster, but it will cost you more mana. And I think that's a good way to go around it, because obviously it should be something that'll come with a downside, that you'll be able to use that mark. And I think this is the right way to do it, because now it means that you'll be able to proc it without having to wait, but you'll still have that opportunity to but you'll still have to pay something in the downside, which is using more mana. And now that means distortion will get more damage. Ooh. That's interesting. Okay, so she'll deal more damage with her distortion. What about her E? Her E is on. No, not at all. Damn, she's gotten a big buff in terms of damage. She really deals so much more damage. I think she'll be able to be more of an assassin now again, because you have more damage. You don't have to wait for your mark to be ready, because you don't have to wait 2 seconds. And your E, okay, it has a shorter range, but it's literally the same. And obviously your ult is still something that can pop people because you deal extra damage. So I think this is a nice way of going around it and changing it back to her old idea of her being an assassin. I like to see how this turns out, because obviously this is a huge buff, and same as this. So I wonder how that'll turn out. I want to see it in action before I really take a stance on it. Moving on to Ahri. E now amplifies Ahri's subsequent ability damage on the targeted strikes. R and E base damage decreased, R damage radio increased. Q no longer grants movement speed, W prioritizes targets Ahri has recently charmed or basic attacked. Okay, so passive. If Ahri earns 2 spell hits against an enemy champion within a 1.5 second period, she gains 20% movement speed for 3 seconds. I think it's a better passive than the old one. Holy hell. Than the old one, but I don't like the idea that you don't have health now. I think that it's good that you've changed the 2 things from that you now put the health onto your Q and the movement speed onto your passive. I don't like the idea of you having to wait that long, because I think the Q was essentially the marker of when you could go. But I understand why you would put the health onto it, because essentially it is still your main your main damage tool. I think I like the changes. I think overall I do like the changes. But essentially she's still the same, just now Q is on, sorry, the health is on the Q. I like that idea that they now prioritize champions instead of just being random. That's always been a trouble. I don't see why you would nerf her though. You've nerfed her E and her R, and overall she has been nerfed, it feels like. So I don't understand why you would nerf her. She's not exactly strong. And obviously your charm now makes you deal more damage, but you'd still need a void staff for that to happen. You'd still need items. And it's not like Ari is in a position to really get items anymore, because you'd have to roam to really be effective. But with you having lower damage, you'd still need items to be effective. So I like the Q and passive changes. I'm not quite in on the E and the R. I don't like that you've toned her down. I don't think you should nerf her. I think you should buff her instead, because she's not strong, not at all. Irelia, base armor increased, Q damage to minions increased, R cooldown increased, R damage missile and wall decreased, especially later max. Okay, so her laning phase is weak. I haven't seen that much of Irelia to say that for sure. I think that once she goes back and gets an item, she has always been like a champion that's very strong, at least in my eyes. So I think that these are not something that's that needed, because she's so incredibly strong once she has like a black cleaver or a Trinity. Well, once she has a Trinity Force, obviously that's her go-to item. So I don't think that you'd need to buff her right here. I can understand why you would go for the base armor. She's very vulnerable prior to her getting a few items, like, or a few components of an item. But I don't think she's weak at all. Soldier damage to Assyrian soldier. Assyrian soldier damage to non-primary targets decrease at early levels. So yeah, I think this is needed. He's very strong in terms of, or he was very strong in terms of wave clearing. And I think this is the right way to go around it, because you don't want to tone anything else down about him. He's very fine right now. He doesn't deal too much damage. He's good in the late game, not that good in the early game, but his wave clear is too strong. He's very reliable when it comes to wave clear. So I think this is a good way to go around it, and I think that might just tone him down a little. I don't think it's what is going to throw him out of the meta, but I do think it's going to turn him down just a little bit. Braum. Armor growth decreased, W bonus resistances decreased. Yeah. He's definitely too tanky. I do agree with these changes. He's like the go-to tank down in the bottom side, and I think you need to have more of a diversity in terms of tanks. So this is a good way to go around it. Hopefully it won't butcher him completely. He's still good in the, once you have like multiple stacks in your stand behind me, but early on it isn't as good anymore. It's not like your armor growth is that bad. Like, you'll only miss 1.5 per level, so it could be worse. And I think this might just be enough to open up more diversity in the bottom side. R cooldown increased on Galio. I don't know if I think it's available too often. I think it might just be him being able to create plays too often. So 180, 150, and 120. So that's 2 minutes on his first level, and now it's 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I don't think 2 minutes is too long. I think it's just enough, actually. I think it's more about the meta enabling Galio to play this aggressively and to make plays all over the map. I don't think it's him having to be nerfed, but obviously in order to nerf the meta, you'd have to nerf multiple champions. So I think it's okay. Not necessarily needed. I don't completely agree with those changes. Graves, health growth increased or cooldown decreased. So gives him a bit of an escape tool in his R. It also gives him an easier time fighting in the mid game. I think that's good enough because you want to have someone like Graves in the meta just so that he can punish those tanky junglers. Like the changes, I think his health growth is also good because it's not exactly the best jungle clearer, not the fastest jungle clearer. So I think it's good changes, and I hope to see him back in the meta. Janna, movement speed decreased, W damage decreased. So I've been seeing a lot of talks on Reddit about Janna, and I think that it's okay for you to hit on her being nerfed. I think it's okay for you to think that it's good. No, I think she needs to be nerfed. Yes, she's too reliable. I don't know if her movement speed is the big problem. I think that I do agree with her W. As an AD carry main, I do agree on her W being too strong because it does allow her to win trades in the bottom side very easily once she just puts that down. And if with an Ahri, she's going to be so poke heavy. So I think those changes are good, actually. I think the Zephyr is the right way. I think you might want to tone down the shield just a little bit too as well, because obviously the shield is one of the stronger parts of her too, and it would make it so that someone like Caitlyn wouldn't be as safe in the laning phase. But obviously looking at the Zephyr, it's only like 5 damage, so it's not that big of a deal. But hopefully it'll open up for a little bit more counterplay to her, so that AD carries can actually fight back against her when she goes in to put down that Zephyr. Kai'Sa, health regen and health regen growth decreased, Q damage ratio increased. So decreased. Well, she needed to be nerfed. She was very strong. She gave me a lot of freelo in solo queue, and I think that with you nerfing her, that's the right way. You haven't toned her down too much at all. I definitely agree with the health. I think that health is a good way to tone down an AD carry. I think that this is actually the right way to go around it. I think this might just even her out a little bit more, because her Q was amazing, her health was always good, and now with both those being toned down, she'll be more vulnerable to the likes of a Caitlyn or a Sivir in the bottom side. Yeah, I think that's the way to go actually. Lissandra, 2 mana cost decreased or cooldown decreased at earlier ranks. Lissandra hasn't seen plays at all. I think you need to bring her back because she's such a fun champion. I love to see Lissandra. I love to see her up in the top lane too. And I if I remember correctly, they changed the passive a while ago. And I think that the Q, having that toned down in terms of mana cost, is good. I maybe would have just given it 70 instead of 75, just to even it out, just to make her a little bit more attractive in terms of dominating the lane. But I do think that you toning down the R makes it so that you might just want to pick her up a little bit more, because now that means that you can fight with that CC easier and more often, which means that with a good TP flank could mean that you'd be able to create a skirmish somewhere that your team definitely would love to have. Nautilus, mana increased, attack damage increased, Q cooldown decreased at earlier ranks. Nautilus has fallen out of favor, and I think this might just be enough to give him a way back into the meta. The meta favors these engage heavy top laners, but he just haven't been able to fight back in terms of lane power, because he hasn't had any damage at all. So I think this is a good way to encourage him to be played, because you can then create fights up in top side faster, and also have more often, and also have more damage coming in from your base attackers. Maybe he'll see play down the bottom side too. We have to consider Braum being nerfed, now with Nautilus being buffed in terms of both damage, mana, and spammability of Dredgeline. He might just return to the meta. I'd love to see him, at least as an AD carry. Sorry, not an AD carry, as a support would be very nice. Rise, E mana cost increased at earlier ranks. Yes, your spell flux is too big, you have too much wave clear. Bloody nerf that. I think that's the right way. Siren, Q damage ratio decreased at earlier ranks. I think that your total attack damage is good. I think that the full charge damage is also good. I don't think you needed to change the base damage, because it's not necessarily his Q that deals a lot of damage. It's more like the full charge damage plus the arcane comet. That means that you'll deal so much damage. So I think this might have just been overdoing a little bit, maybe butchering his laning phase just a little bit too much. But I like the general idea. I just don't like you changing the base damage that much, because sorry, no, the base damage has been actually good because they've increased that. So I think that's a good way to, forget everything I said. I was looking the wrong way. I was looking this way over here. So yeah, I think that's good. I think this is not you butchering his laning phase at all. I think that's exactly what Siren needed. With an arcane comment, he can still deal a shitload of damage, so I don't think that this is killing him at all. Might just make it so that his E will be maxed easier, so that you can harass more with the arcane comment, because the E slows after all. So this might just push him in that opposite direction in terms of laning phase. Tahm Kench, E health restore decreased. W no longer grants Tahm Kench movement speed while moving towards enemy champions with a friend in his belly. I will say I think Tahm Kench is too safe. I don't think that you changing the movement speed while moving towards enemy champions is the right play. Because I think that the fun thing about Tahm Kench is that you're able to both engage and save people. And right here you take away the opportunity for people to to engage. You still have your R, but even when you're on your R, or if you want to have someone chase, you won't be able to do that anymore. I think that the E change is good because he is too safe, he is too tanky, but I don't like the Devour change. Taliyah. Base health decreased, Q cooldown increased at earlier ranks. Yes. So the theme of this patch notes have apparently been wave clearing. And I think that for Taliyah, she's also very reliable in terms of wave clearing. I think that when you already have the Q knockoff damage coming in onto minions, I don't think necessarily you'd need to change the cooldown. It's only 2 seconds, of course, so it could be worse, but I think it is maybe overdoing a little bit, putting it 2 seconds. I think maybe 1 second would have been enough. After all, you do have that fallback damage onto the minions, so you only deal 50% damage from minions, and then it drops off gradually the more times you hit the minion. I don't like the base stats. Well, I think the base stats are fine in the sense that they open up for more counterplay towards her. I don't think she was very tanky to begin with after all. And now this just means that her roaming will be so much weaker. So I think you could have toned it down, yes. I don't think you should have toned it down that much. Maybe just put it down to 520 or something like that, because that would still make it so that she'd have plenty of health while not being very weak when roaming. Virus. W on hit damage decreased. W now has an active which empowers Virus's next Q to deal bonus damage. So instead of applying the stacks, I guess, you now have that active. And it means that his current build, where he goes for attack speed, is going to be completely gone. Especially with active cooldown having such a long cooldown. Like, also the on-hit damage from Blighted Quiver is very low now, so I couldn't imagine you would be very interested in picking up a lot of attack speed. Also, your attack speed on minion kill and on champion kill has been very lowered, so I don't think Varus will see that much play anymore until you figure out a new way of building him, because your W now being changed into this. I don't think you'll see a crit build coming in from Varus either, because that's not. It takes a very long time to ramp up for him, and that his strengths do not lie in the late game. You don't want to go for the armor pin build either, so. I'd have to see how this turns out, but I don't think it's necessarily that good of a change, because it does take away his auto attack build. Vi. Base armor decreased, armor growth increased, health regen and health regen growth increased. Passive and Q cooldowns decreased at early levels. E mana cost decreased. I love Vi, I have to admit. I think she's such a fun champion to watch. So every little bit of buff is good in my opinion, and she needs them. I think that the best buff, however, is the one on her Q and her blast shield, because now you do take away the base armor from her, but you now have that blast shield up more, and that means that you'll be able to clear the jungle better, because you don't take as much damage, but you also have that Q so that you can gank more efficiently and oftener. I think this is so good, and I think this might just be enough to throw Vi a little bit back into the meta. Not necessarily as the top pick, but at least one of like the top 5, I think. Base health regen decreased, base attack damage decreased. I think it's good that you changed the Q the passive instead. I actually think that should have been the way to begin with. And she's a very safe matchup in the bottom side too, because once you get your R, you can get away from pretty much every situation. So I also like the idea about the health regen changes. I hope you guys could see that fly come in there. I think it's good change. Go away, fly. I think it's good changes. It does nerf her in that sense that she won't be as strong in the laning phase anymore, which obviously shouldn't be her strength. Her strength lies in team fighting. Good changes. I do like. Me likey. Items. Archangel Staff. Mana to ability power conversion decreased. So the thing I like about the Archangel Staff is that it opens up for the late game. It opens up for the late game carries. And I like the idea about your mana to ability power conversion. I don't think you should go for 1%. I think maybe 1.5 would be better. Definitely turn it down. I think when you build it early on and you get so much ability power that someone like Rise or Cassiopeia gains from that Archangel Staff, I think it's a problem. But I don't think you should nerf it completely into the ground, which you've done by now only giving it 1%. Lethal tempo. Attack speed bonus increased. Yes, lethal tempo has been suffering. You've been seeing the warlords instead. I'm always having such a hard time remembering all of the different runes. Let me check out. So there is the new one that's been. Oh, wait, no. So it's the new one. It's the Conqueror that's been very good, and you've been seeing fleet footwork for a long time. So I think lethal tempo should be a viable option too between those two runes. So I think these changes are good, especially towards the late game where lethal tempo should be the one spiking. Trinkets. Sweeping lens removed, Oracle alteration now available at level 1. Swapping trinkets now retains the same percentage cooldown as the previous one. So that's interesting. That opens up for so much more control over a Dragon Pit or a Rift Held in the early game, because of you now having that Oracle. So more roaming supports with the oracles, or more junglers with oracles wouldn't be a sight you'd not see very often. I think supports at least will try to pick up the oracle alteration very early on, especially the ones that can roam like a Janna, if they decide to roam, or even the ones that could force fights like a Nautilus or a Braum. Even a Bard would love to have this Oracle Alteration because they're good in fights, and if you can have a good skirmish composition and you can get a Dragon or Rift Held early on, then that would favor them, because you obviously because you'd love to have those objectives, but also because you'd be able to then do it more safely with the Oracle Alteration. Just make sure that everybody else has the vision necessary to make it so safe. Okay, so I'm not quite sure why you change home start. Home start gives too significant of a defender's advantage to champions who never cross into the river. Defensively, champions can run out to the bush near the river, retain the movement speed buff, and easily run away from any invaders who lost their movement speed bonus once they set foot in the river. We change the movement speed buff to fall off a bit closer to the side of the map to make early aggression slightly more likely to succeed. Okay. Makes sense. I don't see why you'd have an advantage in that sense, so that you could run away easier when you are the defender. So I think those changes are good. I agree. And that seems to be it. So thank you all for watching. Obviously this was my review of patch 8.8, as you can see right here. Hope you all enjoyed watching it. Obviously follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and you can see more about what I do in my weekdays as well, when I'm casting, of course. So do that, and I'll see you next time.